In order to understand the psychology of the Dallas shooter, we really need to look at the circumstances that ran up to the incident. It was up. It was due to what happened with the man struggling on the ground and being shot by police while he was in handcuffs. I think that would have been a motivator. I think that. I mean, he was obviously a soldier or in the army or in the Marines, but this this man was motivated. I mean, he was targeting white police officers in a shootout, and he was planning other attacks as well. So obviously he was planning to get away with what he did. So he must have made some very serious plans in detail and used his, army training or soldier training or marine training to serve him in some way. So before he was killed, he said that he wanted to murder white cops in revenge for the black deaths that happened recently. And in similar protests, it really seems that hundreds of people have been arrested, and especially a group of people who dropped an 11-kilogram chunk of concrete on a police officer's head. Now, I call a spade a spade. I call things as I see it. But if I'm a police officer, the last thing I want to do is put myself in a dangerous situation, right? Now that means, why would I shoot someone in a car that doesn't have a weapon? Why would I shoot someone on the ground that doesn't have a weapon? Why would I open myself up to unnecessary ridicule, right? Well, that's my motivation for it. I don't think the police have done anything wrong. But I'm white, so whatever. Statistically, if America was so racist, statistically, if cops didn't care for black lives, why do they keep on patrolling black neighborhoods? Well, that would be because 13% of the population contribute 80% of the crime. So if we're going to be looking from a heteronormative, white supremacist, patriarchal lens, you would find that it's black people's fault. It's plain and simple. Now, this entire situation could have been avoided, actually, if police would have done their job. And by the job, I mean keeping fit, being respectful, and knowing when to shoot, how to shoot, and where to shoot. If someone has a gun, you don't throw them on the ground. Certainly not. You separate the gun from the person. So if that person's on the ground, the first thing you would do is take their pants off. If that person has a gun in their pocket, right, the first thing you need to do is separate the gun from them. You take their pants off. You don't shoot someone who's in handcuffs, you fucking idiots. Anyway, I feel for the families who have lost police officers in the shootouts, and as a result of this Black Lives Matter political bullshit. I mean, I really feel that I really feel for the families, and as much as it goes, I pray for you in a way, and I hope that you get through the hard time. Police described Johnson, the shooter, as annoyingly in control. I mean, he's a sniper rifle. He's on top of a building. He's been practicing explosives. He really terrorized the area. He did some fucking damage. This guy set out for one purpose: do as much damage as he possibly could. And police also described him as delusional. He wanted law enforcement to pay for punishing people of colour, not ignoring that Hillary Clinton is being paid by George Soros, and George Soros has been funding Black Lives Matter, and Black Lives Matter is becoming more and more of a homegrown terrorist organisation akin to that of, Al-Qaeda. Well, they're shooting people, they're blowing people up, they're demanding preferential treatment in political demonstrations, they're demanding safe spaces, they take Bernie Sanders off his pedestal and demand to talk, they hijack a local shooting to educate white people on how black people matter. I'd say they're coming very close to radicalize themselves, and for people to make claims and say that they're radicalized by a white heteronormative patriarchal society is just stupid. Because black people, if there's one thing you can stereotype about black people, it's that if they're black, they want to act black. They don't want to act like a white person. They want to act like a black person, and to them, a black person is typically broke, typically speaks differently, dresses differently, behaves differently. They have their own kind of culture that they tend to like or tend to stick to. Not to say that's normal. In fact, it's absolutely retarded. But there's very few people in the black community who manage to have a family outside of a black community and create a better lives for themselves. And for those people, I say that there definitely needs to be scholarships and definitely needs to be quotas to help get them out of those communities and into better communities, because these ghettos, they don't do any good. They make things worse. And it might be bigoted to say, but fuck you, because we need to do something. There's no use painting everyone with the same brush, because if you're having children in a ghetto environment, you shouldn't be having children at all. In fact, if you want to have a child, you need to move away from a ghetto. A ghetto was no place to raise a family. And I'm sorry, but the high welfare percentage of black people and immigrants, it's ridiculous. And I think that poverty, no education, and being surrounded by violence is definitely a contributing factor to these Black Lives Matter people. And it's not like black lives don't matter. They do matter. It's just we can't give preferential treatment to everyone, because once we give preferential treatment to everyone, we lose track of ourselves. And I resent Obama for saying what he did. I mean, he is a Black Panther supporter himself. He's not too vocal about it, but he is. And for Hillary Clinton to be supporting this as well, it stinks. It stinks of speech control. It stinks of giving police absurdly more power than what they need. And it certainly stinks of politically motivated violence, which is the definition of terrorism. I really think that some reform needs to be done on both sides, and if black people don't want to look at prison statistics, then maybe they should be the change they want to see. And it certainly doesn't start with being violent. It starts by getting an education, getting a scholarship, and moving out of a ghetto area. I'm sorry, but that's just how it is. If you're surrounded by chaos and violence, then it's certainly not our fault that you become entangled in it, because you are a product of your environment. Slavery hasn't been around forever, and in fact, white people were the first slaves, and white people were the first people to end the slave trade. Muslims are still running the slave trade, so you need to take a big look hard at yourselves, big hard look at yourselves, and decide what you want to do, because blaming white people, police, and the government for everything that's happened is just stupid. I think you really need to move on. And my thoughts and prayers are with those who have lost police officers recently, and I I really hope that these families get all the help they need. This is me. Peace out.